Last week we made a video exploring what UK cities you might be able to afford using the 95% mortgage guarantee scheme using the 5% deposit. The week before that we did a video exploring the pros and the cons of the new government scheme. We will link to both videos below and above for you to go and check it out. Those two videos got quite a bit of attention, a lot of people commenting that it indicated that London was totally out of reach for them, mainly because the average price of a property in London was £485,000. A lot of people expressed also the need to be closer to family members in London and also other challenges associated with moving out of London. And guys, we totally get it.
Yeah.
Like, we chose to live just on the outskirts of London because what was important for us was close proximity to our family members. For example, my parents live in zone 2 and it takes about 30 minutes to drive to them, and your parents, it takes about 20 minutes also to drive to Ken's parents, so we needed to be closer to family. Exactly. So today guys, we want to explore how can you actually buy a property in London using a 95% mortgage guarantee scheme using a 5% deposit. Is it even possible?
Exactly.
Is it possible, mate?
Yeah, we're going to walk you guys through how you might be able to go about doing that. More specifically, for this video, we wanted to achieve 4 things. I'm just going to read them out to you. Rather than look at London more generally, as we did in the last video with an average property price in London, we want to just take a dive in, right? We want to zoom in into the various boroughs of London. Where are those opportunities to buy a property within London with a 5% deposit? We're going to be exploring that today. The second thing we wanted to do is we wanted to focus on 5 of the cheapest boroughs in London. Then we're going to give you guys a full list, so make sure you hang on for the end of this video, because what we want to do with those 5 boroughs as well as the rest of the boroughs in London is we want to look at what salary would you need in order to be able to buy a property in those boroughs. What gross household salary would you need to make that happen with a 5% deposit? And then the third thing we wanted to achieve with today's video is we wanted to look at 5 different scenarios of salaries. So a lot of people who watch our channel have varying income levels. So some people earn, 20,000 a year, 35,000 a year, and some people earn 6 figures. So what we're going to do with today's video is look at various income levels all the way from about 35,000 as a household income, going by one of the comments we got in our community section, all the way to around 93,000, which is considered to be the median London income in this city. And then we want to ask ourselves, is it possible for anyone at those various income levels to be able to actually buy a London property with a 5% deposit? And then the final thing we want to do is Mary and I are going to offer you guys a summary and a conclusion on what we think you should be doing if you're somebody who is still yet to go on a property ladder, if you're a first-time buyer and you really want to buy a property in London. We're going to offer you our top tips and a summary, so do make sure you hang around for that. Now, we obviously are aware that not everybody lives in London. A lot of our viewers, our audience are from outside of London, from the UK and beyond, people from the US and so on. So we'd ask you guys to do make sure you hang around and watch this particular video. We've done quite a lot of interesting analysis and we hope you find it really interesting in just helping you consider what it might be like taking those ideas and applying them to your current city.
That's right.
As well as just generally commenting on what you observe by watching today's video.
Guys, if you're really enjoying this video, don't forget to hit that like button and also subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Okay guys, so before we dive into the analysis, I'd like to point out the sources of where we got these numbers from. So the average prices for each London Borough property comes from the Land Registry House Price Index as of December 2020. And then we've got the salary calculator and the mortgage calculator. For all these sources, we're going to link it below for you to also check it out for yourself.
Okay, so guys, we're going to look at part 1 of this video now, which is taking a deeper dive into London. Let's look at what those average property prices are for each borough in London. Remember, in the previous video we mentioned that the average property price in London was 485,600, which is a staggering number. But of course, averages are averages. So there are property prices below that, as well as property prices way beyond that.
So with the lowest, Barking and Dagenham, that comes up as £317,947. So we've got NEWHAM, for example, which comes up as 382,752 for the average house price. Greenwich, we've got 407,938,000.
Wow.
Somewhere like Hillingdon, £419,504. Lewisham, £447,783.
So what's interesting about these, and we've highlighted them in green for you guys to take a look at, just to really point out, these are the average property prices per borough.
Yes.
Below the number that we quoted in our last video, below the average property price in London. And we thought it was really interesting to highlight those because, first of all, it's easy for a lot of people to assume that they can't access London. When in actual fact, if you take a really closer look, you can see that quite a few of those boroughs still have property prices in the 300,000 bracket.
Yes, exactly. And those are just the average prices within that borough. So you can even find properties below that value within that borough too. And looking further down the list, places like Hackney, where I grew up, guys, I mean, it's totally out of reach now. Property prices average £623,000.
Wow.
And £31. You've got places like Camden, which is 803,000, 908,000. So guys, we're going to be looking at the top end of this list.
Hackney, tell these guys, right? Hackney, I'm not going to say anything, right? But Hackney didn't really wasn't that sought after place many years ago.
Don't know what you're talking about. It's always been sought after. yeah. The demographics, it has changed slightly over the years, but interesting.
Slightly? I don't know about slightly. It changed a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely, it has changed. And with that comes the hike in the prices. But I guess that's good for my parents. But it's not so good if you want to buy in that area.
Yeah. Okay, guys, on the back of those numbers we've just shown you, we've taken 5 of those green areas, the areas that are potentially affordable or cheap compared to other parts of London, and we're now going to dive in and work out what level of gross household salary you need in order to be able to afford those areas within London, okay? So we're going to look at 2 specific scenarios. So one is whereby what salary you require if you're going to do 3 times your gross salary as a mortgage, or the second scenario is where you require 4.5 times your gross salary as a mortgage, i.e. the 95% mortgage would be either 3 times your salary or 4.5 times your salary. So what's the first borough we're looking at, hun?
Right, so we are looking at the borough of Greenwich, guys.
Yeah.
So the property price, as you can see, is £407,000, £938. 5% deposit, you're looking at £20,396 for that. So for the 95% mortgage, that works out to be £387,541.
Yep.
You're looking at a gross salary of 3 times your income, £129,180. And for 4.5 times your income, you're looking at £86,000, £120.
Yeah, so essentially what this is saying, as Mary was explaining, was just to make sure we're really clear on what these numbers here at the bottom are. This 86,000 this is a gross salary you would need to have either as a single person if you're buying alone, or as a household if you were buying as a couple. So you'd need to have a total joint income of £86,120 multiplied by 4.5 times. So you're borrowing quite a lot to be able to borrow at 95% at £387,541. If you really didn't want to borrow that much, you'd need a much higher salary at £129,180 to be able to buy.
Yeah.
Let's not forget, as Mary said, this is the average property in the borough of Greenwich in London. All right, so guys, counting down from number 5 to number 4 is Croydon. So many people don't even believe that Croydon is in London, right? You were saying that to me today. But Croydon is in London.
No, but actually, it's Greater London.
Right, okay. But whatever, it's still London, right? It's still so property price, as you can see, we're now in the 300,000s, which is fantastic. So, big celebration, hopefully, for a lot of people. Again, we've gone through the same fundamentals we mentioned earlier. But notice at the very bottom, you would need £80,917 as a joint for a couple, or as, if you're a single person buying, you'd need that much to be able to borrow that much essentially at 4.5 times, in order to be able to buy a property at that average price in Croydon.
Okay, guys, so now we have the borough of NEWHAM.
Yep.
Anyone from NEWHAM? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's our property price. We're looking at an average of £382,752. You need to be earning a gross salary, which is 3 times your income, of £121,204, or a gross salary at 4.5 times your income at £80,803. I mean, as a joint income, I guess that's kind of doable for some people.
That's not crazy.
It's not crazy for, I'm guessing, a lot of our viewers.
Yeah.
But, let us know.
But it's still quite a stretch for some people.
It's still quite a stretch.
So we're going to carry on and keep sharing some more.
Yeah, let's keep going.
All right, so we're heading down more southeast, right? So we're looking at Bexley, and Bexley, quite interestingly, £354,466 was the average property price. Again, as Mary mentioned earlier, with this particular part of town, you can see here, you'd need, if you are looking at 3 times your salary, £112,247. But notice at 4.5 times, £74,831, which is, I think, it's fairly doable as a couple potentially.
I think so.
It might be a bit of a stretch for an individual.
Yes.
But, as a couple, it's starting to look more realistic for London.
Yeah.
Okay, people, drum roll. This is the cheapest borough in London, right? Go on, reveal.
So we have here, guys, Barking and Dagenham.
Wow. I just want to ask, right? I mean, have you guys actually ever heard of Barking and Dagenham?
You're so silly.
I'm just joking. We know this area really well in London. We're very familiar with Barking and Dagenham.
Yeah.
Can you just talk to us about it?
Yep, so the average property price in Dagenham, guys, is £317,947. Remember, it's the average.
Yeah.
And to be able to afford a property in Barking and Dagenham, you're looking at a gross salary with a joint income of £67,000.
Given the numbers we got from the land registry, based on that, you're telling us that this is the number. This is it.
That's the number.
If you can't afford this, basically, this is it. You can't have access to London based on the average numbers. Yeah,
which I know, I get it, for a lot of people, it's still out of reach for you. But for more people, we're hoping that, this is something that is a bit more realistic for you, and something that you could potentially consider for yourselves.
Especially if you're a couple as well.
Yeah.
Potentially. Not everybody has a partner.
Yes.
But if you're a couple and you're both working, it's highly likely that, that this might be a possibility.
Yeah, even for people, if you're a single person buying a property, this might be a possibility for a few of you as well.
So guys, as you saw from that board we had earlier, the magic number to have access to, Barking and Dagenham, which based on the data is the most affordable borough in London on average, is £67,122 as a gross salary, assuming you're borrowing at 4.5 times your salary in order to get access to that 95% mortgage guarantee scheme. Yeah. But the thing is, though, borrowing at that level, is quite a scary thing to be doing.
It is.
And we wanted to just point out other considerations that you should have, other things you should think of as part of your affordability. So a big one is council tax.
Yes.
Now, council tax, believe it or not, from what we saw, for a lot of the cheaper areas in London are actually way more expensive than some of the more expensive parts of London. Like Wandsworth, for example, is way cheaper than like trying to, like in Greenwich, for example, and places like that for council tax. So we want to just mention council tax. You should try and factor in, I'd probably say between £100 per month for the lower bands of council tax and up to about £200 per month for council tax, which works out to be in a year. And remember, this is from your net salary. You're paying this out, £1,200 to £2,400 per year, every year for council tax.
The next thing for you to consider is commuting costs. Although for a lot of you, you might be working from home, but assuming that some of you would need to travel into London or travel to your workplace, factor in between £200 to £300 per month for travelling costs.
And then, of course, factor in other costs of living, okay? Because that's very important. Guys, for the third part of this video, we wanted to look at the cheapest part of London, which we worked out to be Barking and Dagenham. And we wanted to just ask ourselves, using different scenarios, we're going to look at 5 different income levels. Could people be able to buy even in the cheapest part of London, Barking and Dagenham, at these various income levels? The first person in this scenario is earning £35,000 gross salary, or it could be a joint income of £35,000 per year. So the question is, can they buy a property in the cheapest part of London, which is Barking and Dagenham, using the 95% mortgage guarantee scheme? Unfortunately, the answer is a no. They would not be able to buy putting down a 5% deposit because the numbers just don't work in their favour. Yeah. But what we noticed, I mean, to just kind of give you an idea, you'd require a 50% deposit.
That's insane.
Which is just crazy.
That's
so
crazy.
if your gross salary is 35,000, you need 50% deposit.
Wow.
And 4.5 times your gross salary to be able to buy in the cheapest borough of London.
That's crazy. I mean, how many people can actually save a 50% deposit of the value of the house? That's just crazy.
Yep. The second scenario is for somebody earning, or a couple earning, £50,000 gross salary per year. So that's total household income.
Yeah.
For that family or that person to be able to buy a property at the cheapest borough in London, you'd require a 30% deposit, as well as a multiple of 4.5 times your gross salary.
Yeah, that's still a lot.
30%.
That's a lot.
That's to be able to buy that property in Barking and Dagenham at that price of £317,947.
Gosh.
That is still a lot, right? Now, moving on to the third type of person, third scenario, somebody earning £67,000 or a family earning £67,000.
Yeah.
Okay? That person, interestingly, can buy in Barking and Dagenham at 5% deposit, but they'll require 4.5 times their annual salary to be able to do it.
So things will be a bit of a squeeze every month after paying the mortgage bills. It's,
Yeah. But you can do it, is the point. You can buy using the 5% deposit, but the income required, the entry level, is that 67,000, and it's in Barking and Dagenham. Remember, this is this is the cheapest part of London to be able to buy if you really wanted London. Fourth person is somebody earning 75,000. This gets really interesting because yes, can they buy with 5% deposit? The answer is yes, they can buy, of course, because they're earning a lot more. But what's interesting is they would only require 4 times their gross income. So rather than 4.5 times, they require 4 times their gross income. So they'd have a bit more breathing space in terms of payments and stuff like that. So much better. And then the final is the fifth person in this scenario, somebody earning £93,300, which is a bit of an odd number, but we'll pick that number because our research showed that that's the median income in London, £93,300. That person is a yes to using the 5% deposit and the 95% mortgage guarantee scheme. But get this, they will only require 3.2 times their gross salary if they wanted to use the government scheme.
So those are the numbers, guys. Let us know, do you fit into any of those categories? Is this something that you're going to look into, purchasing a property in the borough of Barking and Dagenham? Let us know in the comments. So guys, for part 4, we're going to give you a summary and conclusion of how you can buy a property in London using a 95% mortgage guarantee scheme and a 5% deposit.
So the first conclusion is that to buy in the cheapest part of London, which is Barking and Dagenham, in order to use a 5% deposit, you would need a gross salary household income of £67,122. In addition to that, you'd need 4.5 times your gross salary as your mortgage borrowing.
Second point, to buy with a lower gross household income, you'd need to have a significantly higher deposit saved.
So the third point is that where you buy in London obviously matters, okay? So there are opportunities in London, zone 4 to zone 6. You know, we had to do the same, kind of look at those areas and start to look at the outskirts. And there are pockets of opportunities in South London, East London, as well as in Southeast London for you to buy a potentially affordable property in London.
Point number 4 is that you're more likely to be able to buy as a couple with a joint income, although you can buy as a single person, but your salary would need to be on a higher end. The benefits of buying as a couple is that you have 2 personal allowances, which favors you if you're a high earner.
Yep, and I guess the beauty of mentioning that point is that essentially by having 2 personal allowances, the net income for a couple, even at the same gross income compared to somebody who's single, is higher. And so therefore they're more likely to be able to afford buying a property in London.
Exactly.
The 5th point is that there are opportunities to buy in London by area depending on the type of property that you're buying. Okay, so the various averages that we shared by borough are really averages across a variety of properties. So whether you're buying a 2-bed or buying a studio or buying a 1-bed flat and so on, the prices will vary. And so there are still opportunities even within those boroughs to seek out, properties that you might be able to afford.
Yes. Point number 6 is that there are also opportunities for you to buy in an area if the property is older and in need of some work. For example, you could do it up to your taste. My brother and his wife, they bought a property in Zone 3.
Really nice property.
Yeah, really lovely property. And they took their time, about 2 years, to do it up themselves to a standard that they were happy with.
And they did it up quite cheaply as well.
Yes, so they did most of it themselves. Like the majority of the works they did themselves, and what they couldn't do, then they hired somebody to do it for them. Okay,
so the 7th point is that London is a big area, so you might want to consider other parts of Greater London. So kind of looking closer towards Kent maybe, or towards Essex, or towards Hertfordshire. All these areas in some way still give you that access to London that you might want at an affordable price.
Yes. Finally, guys, don't just buy a property in London because you have to buy a property in London. It really has to make sense for you economically.
Yeah, add as well that in addition to the economics of buying the property, it has to make sense for who you are and your circumstances. You might be buying because you want to start a family and stuff like that. You have to want to live in that area.
Yes, exactly.
Okay guys, thanks so much for hanging on to the end of this video. As promised, up on the screen now is a full list of all the London boroughs by average property prices. We've also included on there what deposit you require, what the 95% mortgage would be, as well as what gross salary you'd require to be earning as a household at 3 times your gross salary, as well as at 4.5 times your gross salary.
Thank you so much for watching this video, guys.
Thank you, guys.
So let us know in the comments, based on watching this, will you be researching some cheaper boroughs in London to find a potential home for yourselves? Or will you be a bit adventurous and consider looking at the outskirts of London for an area that is not too far from maybe family and friends?
Awesome.
Let us know in the comments below.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video.
Thank you, guys.
And as ever, guys, in all things, be thankful and seek joy.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.